Malthus too. Of course, you can deny any of the history I'm about to quote you, and you could say that I'm just quote reading from some propaganda source. But I'd like for you to come up with the names and the places that I mentioned and tell me what actually happened. Malthus too? I'm not Love too. I fuck my mother, and my dad fucks my sister. I'm not Love too. You know, you stop trying to have rational arguments with people who defend genocide and death and are just morons. At this point, you just throw stones at them and beat them severely with sticks. No? Why the Crusades were called? The Crusade sack of Jerusalem in 1099, according to the journalist Amin Maalouf in the Crusades through Arab Eyes, was a starting point of millennial hostility between Islam and the West. Islamic scholar and apologist John Esposito is a bit more expansive. He blames the Crusades' so-called holy wars in general for disrupting a pluralistic civilization. 5 centuries of peaceful coexistence elapsed before political events and an imperial papal power play led to a centuries-long series of so-called holy wars that pitted Christendom against Islam and left an enduring legacy of misunderstanding and distrust. Maalouf, spelled M-A-A-L-O-U-F, will look it up, doesn't seem to consider whether millennial hostility may have begun with the Prophet Muhammad's veiled threat issued over 450 years before the Crusades. Crusaders entered Jerusalem to the neighboring non-Muslim leaders to embrace Islam and you will be saved. Nor does he discuss the possibility that Muslims may have stoked that millennial hostility by seizing Christian lands, which amounted to 2/3 of what had formerly been the Christian world, centuries before the Crusades. Esposito's 5 centuries of peaceful coexistence were exemplified, he says, by the Muslim conquest of Jerusalem in 638. Churches and Christian populations were left unmolested, so he says, but he doesn't mention the Sophronis Christmas sermon for 634. That's S-O-P-H-R-O-N-I-U-S. Look it up. When he complained that the Muslims savage, barbarous, and bloody sword, and of how difficult that sword had made life for Christians. BC myth. The Crusades were an unprovoked attack by Europe against the Islamic world. Wrong. The conquest of Jerusalem in 638 stood at the beginning of the centuries of Muslim aggression, and Christians in the Holy Land faced an escalating spiral of persecution. A few examples. Early in the 8th century, 60 Christian pilgrims from Amorium, spelled A-M-O-R-I-U-M, look it up, were crucified. Around the same time, the Muslims governor of Caesarea, C-A-E-S-A-R-E-A, look it up, seized a group of pilgrims from Iconium, I-C-O-N-I-U-M, look it up, and had them all executed as spies, except for a small number who converted to Islam. And Muslims demanded money from pilgrims, threatening to ransack the Church of the Resurrection if they didn't pay. Later in the 8th century, a Muslim ruler banned displays of the cross in Jerusalem. He also increased the anti-religious tax to zira that Christians had to pay and forbade Christians to engage in religious instruction of others, even their own children. Brutal subordination and violence became the rules of the day for Christians in the Holy Land. In 772, the Caliph al-Mansur ordered the hands of Christians and Jews in Jerusalem be stamped with a distinctive symbol. Conversions to Christianity are dealt with particularly harshly. In 789, Muslims beheaded a monk who had converted from Islam and plundered the Bethlehem monastery of St. Theodosius, killing many more monks. All the monasteries in the region suffered the same fate. Early in the 9th century, the persecution was so severe that large numbers of Christians fled to Constantinople and other Christian cities. More persecutions in 923 saw additional churches destroyed, and in 937, Muslims went on a Palm Sunday rampage in Jerusalem, plundering and destroying the Church of Calvary and the Church of the Resurrection. In reaction to the persecution, look it up, fuckface, if you don't believe me. In reaction to the persecution of the Christians, the Byzantines moved from a defensive policy towards the Muslims to an offensive position of trying to recapture some of the lost territories. In 960s, General Nicephorus Phocas, spelled N-I-C-E-P-H-O-R-U-S, first name, second name P-H-O-C-A-S, look it up, a future Byzantine emperor, carried out a series of successful campaigns against the Muslims, who capturing Crete, Sicilia, Cyprus, and even parts of Syria. In 969, he recaptured the ancient Christian city of Antioch. The Byzantines extended this campaign into Syria in the 970s. Any of this confuse you? Not last toe. Am I a propagandist? Would you like to point out which part of this particular history is wrong? Specifically, you fuck! In Islamic theology, if any land has ever belonged to the House of Islam, it belongs forever. And Muslims must wage war to regain control over it. In 974, faced with a string of losses to the Byzantines, the Abbaside Sunni Caliphate of Baghdad declared jihad. This followed the jihad campaigns against Byzantines launched by Saif al-Dawla, spelled S-A-F, second word A-L, al-D-A-W-L-A, ruler of the Shiite Hamdiya dynasty in Aleppo from 944 to 967. Saif al-Dawla appealed to Muslims to fight the Byzantines on the pretext that they were taking lands that belonged to the House of Islam. This appeal was so successful that Muslim warriors from so far as Central Asia joined the jihads. But as soon as Shia disunity ultimately hampered Islamic jihad efforts. And in 1001, the Byzantine Emperor Basil II concluded a 10-year truce with the Fatimid, the Shiite Caliph. Basil soon learned that to conclude such truces was futile. In 1004, the sixth Fatimid Caliph, Abu Ali al-Mansur al-Hakim, 985 to 1021, turned violently against the faith of his Christian mother and uncles, two of whom were patriarchs, ordering the destruction of churches, burning of crosses, and the seizure of church property. He moved against the Jews with similar ferocity. Over the next 10 years, 30,000 churches were destroyed and untold numbers of Christians converted to Islam simply to save their lives. In 1009, Al-Hakim gave his most spectacular anti-Christian order. He commanded that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, spelled S-E-P-U-L-C-H-E-R, lock it up, in Jerusalem be destroyed, along with several other churches, including the Church of the Resurrection. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, built by the Byzantines in the 7th century after the Persians burned an earlier version, marks the traditional site of Christ's burial. It also served as a model for the Al-Aqsa mosques. Al-Hakim commanded that the tomb within be cut down to the bedrock. He ordered Christians to wear heavy crosses around their necks, and for Jews heavy blocks of wood in the shape of a calf. He filed out other humiliating decrees, culminating in the order that they accept Islam or leave his dominions. The erratic caliph ultimately relaxed his persecution of non-Muslims and even returned much of the property he had seized from the church. The partial cause of Al-Hakim's changed attitude was probably his increasingly tenuous connections to Islamic orthodoxy. In 1021, he disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Some of his followers proclaimed him divine and founded a sect based on the mystery and other historic teachings of a Muslim cleric, Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Barizi, after whom the Druze sect is named. Thanks to Al-Hakim's change of policy, which continued after his death, the Byzantines were allowed to rebuild the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in 1027. S-E-P-U-L-C-H-E-R, or however you pronounce it. Nevertheless, Christians were in precarious positions, and pilgrims remained under threat. In 1056, the Muslims expelled 300 Christians from Jerusalem and forbade European Christians from entering the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, or however you pronounce it, spelled S-E-P-U-L-C-H-E-R. Look it up! When the fierce and fanatical Seljuk Turks swept out from Central Asia, they enforced a new Islamic rigor, making life increasingly difficult for both native Christians and pilgrims, whose pilgrimages they blocked. After they crushed the Byzantines at Manzikert, spelled M-A-N-Z-I-K-E-R-T, look it up, in 1071, and took the Byzantines Emperor Romanius Romanius Degonis prisoner, all of Asia Minor was open to them, and their advance was virtually unstoppable. In 1076, they conquered Syria. In 1077, Jerusalem. The Seljuk Emir Astiz bin Uwaq promised not to harm the inhabitants of Jerusalem. But once his men had entered the city, they murdered 300 people.